today. And so I'm just going to share my screen so we can get started. But just before I get started, I want to say that please ask questions. It's how we learn, and do not, be afraid to ask questions or, what you think is a stupid question. There is no stupid question. Everybody knows different things. So please ask questions. And so I'm going to start with a couple of polls. I want to know, kind of what you guys know about teeth. So I'm going to launch our first poll. And the question is just, have you learned about teeth? And, where have you learned about it? And if you haven't, that's okay. We're going to go over that today. So I guess your instructor can, put in, I guess, the majority vote of, maybe put up your hand if you've learned about it. And he can put in the majority vote if you have or have not learned about it. Oh, it looks like we've not learned about teeth at all. Okay, so let's ask the second one. And this one is, what kind of drew you to this workshop? Was it teeth, forensic anthropology, or bioarchaeology? Your instructor may have chose this, so maybe it's your instructor's answer. But that kind of helps me give a little bit more information about different areas if you're more interested in one area. Teeth. Awesome. All right. So we've got, that's basically all today is teeth. So this is awesome. So we'll get started. So I'll just go over my outline here. Here we go. So this screen is just showing the different stages of our skeletal development. So we start, I think you guys should be able to see my mouse. So you start off in a newborn as a newborn here in the bottom left corner, and then going up is, a toddler, and then a child, and then over to a young adult. And then we've got an old adult in the bottom right. And we can see as the skull changes, the teeth also change as well. We start with no teeth and we'll end with no teeth. So today is all about, how teeth develop and how they erupt. And so the first thing we're going to talk about is, how important teeth are to anthropologists. So dental anthropology, and then how forensic anthropologists and bioarchaeologists and bioanthropologists use it. And we'll go over each of those disciplines. And then we're going to talk about the types of teeth in our mouth and the structures of the tooth. And then we're going to go over how teeth develop and erupt. We'll go over an eruption sequence. And then how, me, who I study forensic anthropology, how forensic anthropologists and bioarchaeologists kind of use this development and eruption sequence to provide an age estimation. So we're going to learn a lot of things in this webinar, and we're kind of going to work at it like if you were in university, where we start with a base knowledge, and then we kind of work on top of that, where you'll be able to apply your knowledge later on. Now, we're not going to learn all the nitty gritty details. We're just going to learn some, broad basic things. So while teeth are important for a lot of careers, like dentists, they definitely need to know teeth in and out. They're actually also important for anthropologists. And you're probably wondering, if you haven't, been to this webinar before, what is anthropology? So anthropology is the study of humans, their behavior, culture, biology, language, and it's both in the past and the present. And it's basically, what makes us human. That's what anthropologists study. So there are a bunch of different subdisciplines, and they focus on kind of each part of what makes us human. But the nice thing about anthropology is that they're never really studied in isolation. So anthropology is really interdisciplinary. So many subdisciplines work with each other to understand our aspects of human life. So when it comes to teeth, we have dental anthropology, and this is the study of dentition of humans and non-human primates. And we use this to study things such as diet, our population relatedness, our nutrition. And so we've got, let's see, I think I had a picture here. Here we go. So we've got this individual here with a bunch of calculus buildup. And so we know that this individual, couldn't have taken care of their teeth. And in this calculus, it actually captures microorganisms like bacteria. And we can take this and study the DNA from the bacteria. And this kind of gives us a little bit of information about the oral microbiome and possibly about their diet as well. So very important for dental anthropology, and then how we use dental anthropology. So bioanthropologists use the teeth to study our human ancestors and non-human primates. And so these teeth are kind of an indicator of what, diets that fossil hominins had, or how we're related to other primates, evolutionarily. And this is based on the structure of our teeth in comparison to the non-human primates. So we've also got forensic anthropology. And so forensic anthropologists use teeth to estimate the age of an individual. So usually a forensic odontologist, or otherwise called a forensic dentist, will provide a little bit more information after the anthropologist. They're kind of the expert on teeth. And so the forensic anthropologist kind of provides a preliminary information for the law enforcement, and then the odontologist will come in afterwards and provide a little bit more specific details. But new research in forensic anthropology has shown that teeth are actually useful for understanding ancestry. So ancestry is kind of where an individual's population of origin was. I have origins in Sweden and, Eastern Europe. And so teeth are really helpful for understanding where people have come from. And they're actually also making a program where you can enter data that you've collected from teeth, and then it will spit out an estimation of, where this person likely came from. So it's really cool. And then we also have bioarchaeologists who use teeth, and they use it to understand the diet and nutrition between archaeological populations. And we've actually got another webinar coming up at the end of May by a bioarchaeologist. Her name is Dr. Julia Gamble, and she studies teeth in archaeological populations. So if you're free for that, we are aiming for it to go in the evening. So people can join who are interested, and she's going to talk about her research, and it's really, really neat. So I highly recommend going to that one. So bioarchaeologists, they kind of use the age estimation in a different way than a forensic anthropologist. They kind of they'll use it on individuals to get an age estimate, but it's more they use those age estimates as a population to understand, how old individuals were generally when they died, and does this give an indication of a pattern in this population of the death rate, or a pattern of a diet, or pattern of growth. So bioarchaeology is based more on the population, and then forensic anthropology, we're based more on the individual, because we want to be able to return that individual to their family members. So overall, teeth are very important for studying humans. So we're gonna now go on to the parts of the teeth. So right here, I've got a photo of our top jaw, which is called the maxilla. And then we've got our bottom jaw right here, which is our mandible. And these two bones are what hold our teeth. So we're going to briefly review the parts of a tooth. Now you guys have a worksheet, so please pull that out and fill in the parts of a tooth. So in general, we have our tooth separated into 2 or 3 main parts. We've got our crown on top, and this is the part which is used for biting and chewing. And this is the visible part. And then we've got our neck, which is kind of the transition zone between our crown and the root, which is found within the bone, which is the internal part that you can't see. And this kind of anchors the tooth into the jawbone. And there are a bunch of soft tissues that help also anchor the root into the jawbone. And I'm not going to go over those because forensic anthropologists and bioarchaeologists are generally focused on the hard tissues, which would be the tooth and bone. So we wouldn't see the soft tissues. So we've got our crown, which is covered in a dense mineral layer, and it's called enamel. And then in our roots, we've got a different mineral layer, and this is called dentin, and it's not quite as hard as enamel. Now, the important thing to know about the enamel on the crown is that it does not heal. So when you get cavities, you can't heal the cavities by putting down more enamel. Once you get it, it's there and you can't reverse it. The dentin, however, has kind of a little bit of a healing process where if the cavity is able to get past the enamel and into the root where the dentin is, the dentin has vessels and nerves in what's called the pulp cavity. And these vessels and nerves kind of go into what are called tubules in your dentin, and they recognize that there's a cavity there. And then they'll fill it in with the new dentin, but they can only do that once. And so once your cavity gets here, it heals it once and that's it. So that's the big difference between enamel and dentin, is enamel cannot heal and it's a lot harder. So we've also got a third mineral layer, which is called cementum, and you can't see it really on this photo, but it would be on the outside of our enamel. So I did show you in our first one here. So this here, we have calculus on the outside, and underneath it, would be cementum along the roots, and this would hold the soft tissue that anchors the root into the jaw. All right, so I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to fill out your worksheet just to catch up, and then we'll move on. All right, so we'll move on here. Hopefully you guys have filled that out. Okay, so we're going to talk about the types of teeth that we have in our mouth. So there are 4 different types of teeth. We've got our incisors. So this picture right here is showing all of our upper teeth and all of our lower teeth. And right in the middle, we've got these 2 incisors. We've got canines, which are right beside the incisors right here. And then we've got 2 premolars and 3 molars. So each of these teeth are morphologically distinct, so they have a different shape. And when we talk about teeth in our mouth, we do so in quadrants. So our teeth are mirrored on the left and your right sides, and then your top and your bottom. So we have the same teeth in each quadrant. So we've got our, if we split it down the middle right here, we've got our left and right sides. And then right down the middle here, we've got our top and bottom. And each of these has the same number of teeth. So you can actually tell whether a tooth comes from the top or the bottom, and you can side them as well, but we're not going to be doing that today. That's a little bit beyond what this is. So we've got our incisors, and these are the flat, like almost scoop shaped looking teeth, and they have a broader crown than they do wide. So if I were to turn this tooth sideways, it would be very thin. You can touch your teeth yourself and pinch them, and you can see that they're very thin. And then we've got our canines, which are cylindrical, and they have a little bit of a point. So that's how you can tell the difference between an incisor and a canine, is the canine will have a bit of a point if they're not worn down. Premolars, we kind of have this oval shape, I guess. So I don't know if I put this too far down, but we can see the top of the tooth right here, and it's a little bit oval shaped. And then we have from the side, we can see two cusps, and these are like the hill-like bumps on your teeth. That's what we call cusps. And then we have our molars, which are these kind of square looking teeth. And they have between 3 and 5 cusps, and sometimes they even have more. So we've got 2 sets of teeth. So we've got baby teeth right here on the left side. And then there's about 20 of these. So remember that we're talking in quadrants. We've got our mandible, which has 10 teeth. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then times 2 for the other side, 10 teeth, and then times 2 for the top and bottom. And then we've got 32 adult teeth or secondary teeth. And so for the baby teeth, they're actually missing the molars, which we have back here. And you can see them right here in the baby teeth, and these are called crypts. They're in the crypts in the back because they're still developing. So baby teeth, no molars. And these 2 sets of teeth, they have different shapes. And we can actually determine whether they are baby teeth versus adult teeth, like the size of them. But again, it's not something we're going to focus on today. We're just going to focus on the timing and eruption of these baby teeth and adult teeth. And of course, when we get to this will help us determine how old an individual is if we have all of the teeth in the mouth. So we're going to do a poll, and we're going to just do a quick review of what part of the tooth is made of enamel. So I guess put your hand up if you think it's the crown, and then we'll figure out how your instructor wants to do the different answers. So is it the crown, the root, or the pulp that has enamel? So I'll give you about 30 seconds to answer that. Perfect. Yep, the crown. That's awesome. Okay, so now that we know that there, what the different types of teeth there are and a little bit about their structure, we're going to go look at their development or formation. So formation is the process by which teeth form. And this occurs when the teeth go through different shapes to get to a final shape. So as you can see from this picture, let's see, where is it? Up in down in the corner here. So this picture in the corner, there's the bone is shaved away, and we can see that the teeth start forming in the crypts. So I had already mentioned this quickly, and this is an adult tooth right here. And the crown gets formed first, so the enamel gets laid down little bits by little bits until, all the way down to the root. And so what you can see here is the fully formed tooth in the mouth. So you've got a bunch of teeth already in the mouth, out of the bone, and then you've got teeth down here that are still forming. So the process by which the teeth come out of the bone into the mouth is called eruption. So formation is the making of the tooth, and then eruption is the pushing of the tooth out of the bone into the mouth. So let's see, we've got the set of adult teeth forming. We can see another one right here, one up here, one down here, and one right here. And yeah, so this picture here is just showing what so this chart here is just showing the stages of development. And so this circle that I've indicated is the crypt, and that's what it is showing us. So we can see the crypt in this chart, and then the tooth crown keeps developing, and then the roots start developing. So this chart is just showing us the process by which teeth form, and I had just indicated that it's in a crypt. So this child has a full set of baby teeth out, and then none of the adult teeth have erupted. Okay, so now we're going to go into the stages of tooth development. So we've got 3 stages, and they're called the bud stage, the cap stage, and the bell stage. Now, to get to these stages, tooth development begins with kind of an interaction between 2 important tissues that kind of interface each other. So they touch each other, and they're interacting to make the tooth. So this first stage that I have out, well, not yet, this is prior to the first stage, but the first stage is called the bud stage. And this is where the 2 tissues, interact and create cells to start to form the tooth. So this first tissue is called the epithelium, and the second tissue is called the mesenchyme. You guys don't need to know, these tissue names for the sake of this webinar, but just know that these are very important tissues when it comes to development. So the epithelium, it thickens and it creates what's called the dental placode. So it kind of like buds into the mesenchyme, which is why we call it the bud stage. So the epithelium thickens and buds into the mesenchyme tissue, and this creates a structure which is called the enamel organ. And then the mesenchyme, it condenses around this bud, and it creates a structure called the dental papilla. Excuse me. So there's lots of names, and the reason why I'm telling you these names is it's basically each stage of development looks different, so it has a different name, but you don't really need to know them for the sake of this webinar. So the different parts of this bud, they actually grow at different rates. And so the outer cells are going to grow faster than those in the middle. And then this leads us to the cap stage. So our outer cells have grown a lot faster than what's in the middle. And then we've got the mesenchyme, which we had condensed, remember, in the middle of the bud. And this is the dental papilla. And then the mesenchyme that's around the dental papilla and the enamel organ is called the dental follicle. Again, don't need to know them, but I'm just saying that because these are different looking, they're going to have different names. So our last stage is the bell stage. And this is where the enamel organ gets deeper, so it gets longer. And this is where it keeps growing and it kind of makes a little cup. And this is where the crown starts to develop. So you can kind of see the shape of the crown right here already starting to form. And then it goes into the late bell stage, which I guess is not shown here. The late bell stage is where the crown shape is basically confirmed. It's determined whether it will be a canine, an incisor, a premolar, or a molar. And then this is also the stage where the epithelium, remember our first two are important tissues, our epithelium and the mesenchyme interact again, and they create cells that are called odontoblasts and ameloblasts. And these are what start to lay down the mineral that we were talking about, the enamel and the dentin. So the ameloblasts, they lay down enamel, and odontoblasts lay down dentin. And the way you can remember these names is we've got blasts, so B is in the name. And so how I remember it is B builds. So ameloblasts build enamel, odontoblasts build dentin. So ameloblasts and odontoblasts, they start laying down their minerals and they move in opposite directions. So the ameloblasts move upwards, outwards, and then kind of down the crown. And this is how it creates the enamel of the crown. And then the odontoblasts move inwards and down so that they create the roots. So after this is all said and done, once the roots start to move down and the dentin is being laid down until the tips of the roots, this root formation causes the tooth to be pushed up and out of the bone. So that is eruption. Okay, so now, so this is the fully erupted tooth, a fully developed and fully erupted tooth at the end here. So now we're going to do another review. We're going to match the types of teeth with the names of the teeth. So I'm going to give you guys about a minute to match A, B, C, D with 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then we'll go over it quickly. Okay, so we're gonna go over our matching answers. Hopefully you guys have had enough time to write down what you think each is. So we've got our molar, which is number 1, and it matches with C. And then we've got our premolar, which is number 2, and it matches with A. We've got our incisor, which is B, and it matches with 3. And remember, our incisors are these flat shovel-shaped teeth. And then we've got our canines, which have this little bit of a point, and this matches 4D. I couldn't fit in the top of the teeth, but remember that molars have 3 to 5 cusps and our premolars have 2 cusps. Okay, so now we are going to look at the microstructure of the tooth. So those cells that I was talking about, the ameloblasts and odontoblasts, this is the level that we're going to be looking at. So this section right here is this yellow box, and then this black box zooms in even more to this box here, and then this zooms in even more to this box here. And then this right here is just a real thin section. So it's showing the same things, which I will go over. So we have our little tooth forming cells called ameloblasts and odontoblasts. And remember that the blasts build. So these little building cells lay down the tooth matrix, and the matrix is basically just the material, the enamel or dentin. And so right in this line drawing right here, we can see these arcs. This is the way the cells lay down the layers. So we can see going down the tooth that they're in these lines. So these layers are laid down according to daily and weekly rhythms. So basically, when you wake up in the morning, the cells start working, and then when you go to sleep at night, they slow down. And they do this on a weekly rhythm as well. So they'll slow down at the end of the week and then speed up again at the next week. And so they'll create these lines. So we can see the lines in this line drawing right here. And so we've got our weekly lines, which are these long ones. And we can actually see them on the surface, and they're called pericymata when they're on the surface. And if we look at our real thin section of the tooth, we can see these lines right here with the white arrows. So those are our weekly lines. So this indicates, a week has gone by, and then within this week of laying down, we look at this yellow arrow. There's little notches on the yellow arrow. Those are your daily lines. So this is what the ameloblasts have laid down in a day. So hopefully this is a little bit clear on how this is important for age estimations. And it's kind of like how you determine the age of a tree. You can see kind of these concentric rings. And in this case, when we get down the side, they're, lines. So we're able to count these lines for a young enough individual who hasn't fully formed their teeth, and we can count how old they are. So it's pretty precise. However, if the tooth is fully formed, then we're going to look at the eruption sequence to be able to help us age the individual. So that's what we're going to work on right now. So eruption, if we remember, is when the tooth starts to come into the mouth from the bone. So as the root, we can see that this premolar, or it's a baby molar, I guess, we can see the root is not fully formed. And then the one next to it, we can see that it is fully formed. And this is because the roots, remember, they start to form top down. And so the bottom of the root, it pushes the tooth out of the bone into the mouth. And we can see the adult teeth forming right below the baby teeth. and they form in the same way that the baby teeth did. And we can see that because they're below it, and when the roots start to form, well, there's no space for it. So the roots push the tooth up against the baby teeth. And then the baby teeth are pushed out of the mouth because of the formation of the roots of the adult teeth. Now, this eruption into the mouth, it follows a certain sequence, and so a certain timing. Both sequence and timing are important for how we can get an age estimation. So there's actually 3 phases of eruption. There is eruption of the tooth through the bone, and then eruption through the gums, and then when the teeth actually touch each other, it's called coming into occlusion. And it means, yeah, the top and bottom teeth, they can touch, so they can actually become functional and chew food. If they're not touching, then you can't really chew the food. So yeah, there's 3 phases. So we've got out of the bone, out of the gums, and then when the teeth touch. So the order in which the teeth form, erupt, and fall out, they all follow a similar schedule, I guess, in humans. And this means that if we have an eruption chart like this, now this is possibly a little bit overwhelming. So I'm gonna, don't bother reading it, just kind of look at it and see that this is like a little chart that shows us how the teeth form, erupt, until they get to adult stage. So this is what this chart is showing. And we're going to use this a little bit later on. So what we can use this chart with is if we have the dental remains from someone who is younger than 18 to 21, we can compare how their teeth look to this chart to determine an approximate age range of how old they are. So we can compare the individual to the schedule to get an estimation. So we need to match up how many baby teeth there are or how many adult teeth there are. And then are the adult teeth fully formed or are the baby teeth fully formed? And then this helps us match up to which stage is best, which matches best. So this method kind of works best if we can compare both the formation and the eruption. But since teeth are hidden in our jaws, if we go back to here, this, like, you know, if we have a jaw and the teeth are in here, we can't see them unless, you know, we break them or we take an X-ray. So we kind of have to use both to get, I guess, the best estimate that we can. So in humans, teeth will follow kind of the same pattern on the top and the bottom of the mouth. And when I say pattern, I mean the way that the types of teeth come into the mouth. And remember, we talk about teeth in quadrants, the left and right, and top and bottom. So this chart here is showing your top and bottom teeth on one side. So we've got 2 quadrants here. And the quadrants are, when you're matching teeth up on a real individual, you have to remember that there are quadrants. Otherwise, you might miscount the number of teeth. So just remember that we talk about teeth in quadrants. So left and right, top and bottom. This is important for our exercise that we have. We'll do a little bit later. So the bone is depicted by the black line, which if I take your attention to the top here, we can see this black arrow. It shows us that it starts at 30 weeks in utero. That's when your teeth start to form. And the black line is the bone. And then the gray circles are the crypts. And the gray is actually indicative of your baby teeth. And then the blue, which we can see at the 4.5 and 7.5 months, is the crypts for the adult teeth. So adult teeth are in blue. And then we can see the crypts actually on the outside as well for some of these teeth, which I'll show you in a little bit. So these crypts can help us determine age when we can't actually see the teeth. So remember when the roots start forming in the crypts, if we go around our chart, we can see that the roots, let's say, start at 1.5 months for the baby teeth. We can see the roots push the tooth out of the mouth in 4.5 months, the incisors here, which are at the front. And then we keep going around our chart, say to 10.5 months, our incisors are almost touching. And then we go to 1.5 years, and this would be the incisors are in occlusion. They're touching each other. There is a space between them, but they're at the same level. Okay, so then remember for baby teeth, we only have our 2 incisors, 1 canine, 2 premolars. And then for our adult teeth, we have the same, but then we have the molars, which are additional. So that's why there is an extra blue crypt behind our 2 molars, 2 premolars, our 2 baby premolars. So the order of teeth will follow certain timings, and above the teeth, we have above the tooth picture in each of these, there is an age. This is kind of the midpoint of the range. So if we look at the center of our chart, underneath the Atlas of Human Tooth Development and Eruption, we have the guy's name, and then we've got a circle that is open. It says this is the midpoint of 1 month. The one that we're mainly going to focus on is the ones after the closed dots, I guess, the full circles. It says it's the midpoint of each year. So let's take 3.5 years. This is what a 3.5-year-old looks like. We're actually looking at what a child looks like between 3 and 4 years. So that's what that age at the top means. It's between 3 and 4 years. Okay, so this is the chart that we use for age estimations, and we're going to go on to our age estimate. And this is just our photos of how we look at each age. So there are a few steps that you have to do when you are making an age estimate. The first step is going to be the counting of the teeth. So if you have 20 teeth and no more that you can see in the mouth, you have a child. And so you're going to consult the chart. And well, you're always going to consult the chart, but basically you've counted 20 teeth, so you know that it can't be an adult because it doesn't have the molars. So remember that your chart is only showing half of the teeth, so you have to remember that this chart right here, where we have our, let's say 7.5 months, we have our incisors that are peeking through the bone. When we count these teeth, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, but that's only half of the incisors, so you have to multiply it by 2 to get 8. So it's an important point. That's why I keep bringing it up. Sorry, I just have to plug my laptop in. It's dying. There we go. So generally, if you have less than 20 teeth in the mouth of the individual you're looking at, then you're going to be a child. The next is going to be 20 to 30, which is going to be a mix of baby teeth and adult teeth. And we're going to consult the chart, which is what we're going to do. And then if you count 28 to 30 teeth, 32 teeth, you're an adult. And the reason why I say 28 teeth as the minimum for adult is because we have wisdom teeth, and many people get their wisdom teeth removed. And when you get your wisdom teeth removed, the hole that the teeth are in actually grows over with bone. So it looks like you actually don't even have those teeth. There's no, I guess, crypt, there's no root socket for them. So when you have 28 teeth, you could actually be looking at an adult. They don't necessarily have to have 32 teeth. And then we're not focusing on this today, but the baby teeth and adult teeth have different shapes. And that's another way that you can tell whether you're looking at baby teeth or adult teeth. So the second step is to look for crypts. And you can see these on the outside of the bone. And they're just these little holes, which we can see with this yellow arrow, these little holes right below the baby teeth. Now, don't mistake them for the foramen, which are further back. These are where nerves and blood vessels come out. So the crypts are closer to the tooth. And then I've got them in a different order. We are going to look at the different heights of the teeth. So the heights indicate whether they're in occlusion or not. So remember, occlusion is the last step of eruption where the teeth touch each other. So when you're looking at the teeth from the side, they're going to come in at different heights at different stages. So we can see on the 1.5-year-old, the incisors are at the same height, but the canine right beside the incisors is a little bit lower, and so it's not in occlusion yet. And so that's another way you can tell on this chart. So at 2.5 years, all of the baby teeth have come into occlusion. So they're all at the same height. All right, so this is the main, I guess, steps for doing an age estimation. And if you follow these steps and look at the chart, you're going to get an age range. So based on the steps that I've given you, I'm going to do a poll. Can you determine whether this is a child or an adult's mouth? So I'll give you guys about 30-45 seconds to answer whether you think it is a child or adult's mouth. Awesome. Yes, this is a child. And we can tell because we're counting our teeth in quadrants. So remember, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 4 quadrants. Multiply that by 4, it's 20 teeth. We can see crypts, which means there's adult teeth forming below them. So this has to be a child's tooth. Now it looks like we are running out of time. So what we're going to do is I'm going to leave the worksheet question for you guys to do in your own time. But what I'm going to do to help you guys do that is do an example. So we're going to do an age estimate of this individual's mouth to find out how old this individual is. So we're going to start at the, where is it? 4.5 months right here. We've got our chart showing us that our incisors are only just coming past the bone. When we look at our child's mouth, remember we've counted our teeth. We've got 20 teeth, and then we've got adult teeth forming below them. When we look at our child's mouth, well, the incisors, they're already out and in occlusion, and so are all the other teeth. So we're going to go around our chart until all of our baby teeth are in alignment, which we come to at 2.5 years. All of the teeth are in alignment. We've got crypts with adult teeth that are forming. So when we look at our chart, we can see that the molar behind our 2 premolars is forming. And that matches what we see in our photo. We're going to look at our first premolar right here, and just below it, there's an adult premolar forming. We go to our chart, our top tooth matches with our first adult premolar forming, and it actually matches in the formation as well. It's only this tiny little triangular tip. And in our picture, we can see that triangular tip as well. So this matches, and it matches pretty well. And so we're gonna compare this I guess looks like it could be our canine. We're gonna go below our canine, and it matches pretty well, is pretty good as well. Now, because this bone is shaved back, some of these crypts might have been further out and so shaved away. But so far, what we're seeing in the crypts is it matches the 2.5-year-old. And then this crypt for our second molar, we do not see because the child's mouth is too small. So we know it can't be anything beyond this stage, but it could be earlier than 2.5 years old. Remember that this is a range of 2 to 3 years old. The one before it is a range between 1 and 2 years old. So if I were to make an age estimate of this individual, I would probably put it between, 1 and 3 years old, with the likelihood it being on the earlier end of that range, because in our 1.5-year photo, there is no crypt for our second molar. And when we look at our individual here, there is no crypt for the second molar. So I would say that this individual is more likely on the earlier range. So that's how you use that chart. Go through the 3 steps and then come up with an age range. So we'll do one last poll, and I might have put the wrong answer for this, but I will tell you the correct answer. So the 2 arrows that are pointing here, can you tell, are these adult or baby teeth based on what you have learned? And remember that primary is just another name for baby, and secondary is another name for adult.
I think you are muted, Chenee.
Oh,
Oh, you're good now.
how long was I muted for? Oh my gosh.
Just a few seconds, okay.
Okay, so just going to go over a summary of what you guys have learned. We know that teeth are useful for understanding nutrition and diet of our humans and human ancestors. There are 4 types of teeth in the human mouth, which are the incisors, canines, premolars, and molars. And the development and timing and eruption of these 4 types of teeth we can actually use for age estimations for forensic anthropologists and bioarchaeologists. So if I was muted, I was trying to explain that you guys have a worksheet question which has an example of how to do an age estimate. So you can go through that, use the chart, and come up with your own age estimation. I will provide answers for the worksheet and we'll send them to your instructor. So give a crack at it and see what you come up with and if it matches the answer that I send you guys. So thank you so much for coming. If you have any questions, please let me know. I will stick around for a couple minutes if you guys have class time a little bit past this, and I'll answer anything that you guys have.
Yeah, feel free to use the chat function to send in any questions you guys might have. Or if you also want to unmute yourselves, that also works. So, yeah. All right. I get. Oh, yeah. Thank you for
Awesome.
coming.
Yeah, I'll send that out probably next week so you guys have a chance to do it on your own. I was hoping to do a little bit of a group work, but I ran out of time, so I apologize for that.
Yeah, I guess if you guys don't have any other questions, thank you for coming to this webinar today, and thank you, Chenee, for presenting. As Chenee mentioned earlier, we're gonna have another webinar with Dr. Gamble, and I will be sending out emails about that as well. And yeah, if you guys come up with just any questions you might have after we end the call, feel free to send us an email at lts.uofm@gmail.com, and I can easily forward that to Chenee. And again, thank you, and we hope you enjoyed this and learned something new.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.
Have a great day, everyone.